A few months ago, I've been saving enough of my own money on hand to get myself a Switch 2 for myself, just so I can experience some other Switch 2 games like DK Bonanza and maybe even better running version of Switch 1 games as well. Yet, despite my best efforts, every single local store I go to, not even a single console in there, just only the games and pretty much even the accessories. Later on, I was actually able to acquire a Switch 2 at an eBay auction. The money that was going to the Switch 2 was used instead for a secondhand PS5 at a random thrift store and Astrobot. And let me tell you, Astrobot is just so good. A 3D platformer game that came from Team Asobi with devs that moved from the shutdown of Japan studios. Astrobot is pretty much a love letter to PlayStation's entire history, going from the PS1 to the PS5. Not just only from the first parties, but even third parties as well. The entire game is really delightful to play. It has really creative level designs, great soundtrack, and even some really fun boss fights that even put Mario to shame. In fact, even at the end of each area, there's an entire level that is themed to one specific franchise, like Ape Escape and God of War. But I should mention that I haven't actually finished the entire game, just only 2 chapters, but I will get to finish it eventually. Concord was supposed to be PlayStation's big hit for 2024, while Astrobot was supposed to be their dessert for PlayStation fans. Yet you know the story. Concord only lasted for 2 weeks before shutting the servers down. PlayStation lost $400 million, wasted 8 years of development, and the studios that made the game got shut down. Yet Astrobot got the highest rating on IMDb and other news sites, and even won Game of the Year for 2024, which that was a pretty big surprise. The first ever 3D platformer game to win Game of the Year, and pretty much a PlayStation platformer game that had been praised by everybody, especially Nintendo fans. That's a huge accomplishment for Team Asobi and Astrobot. I mean, all of us agree that Astrobot is pretty much peak platforming joy. There's not even a single flaw that pretty much ruins the entire experience of the game. Not even one problem that pretty much calls into questioning on why people praise it online everywhere compared to other games. Well, actually, there is one problem about the game I do kind of have beef with. And it pretty much is an opinion, but even still, this is a problem that I keep thinking about over and over again, and it doesn't seem to be keeping out on the back of my mind. And it's that, so many people who played Astrobot on PS5 only seems to pretty much say that Astrobot was their second platformer game on the PS5. Not even their third or fourth platformer. Just a second.
It goes without saying, we are getting a lot more 3D platformers these days, but most of them are indie. But we don't really get that Nintendo style AAA, super high budget, high polish 3D platform. We don't get that a whole lot.
Okay, I think that these people who are clamoring for the demand of these old long dead franchises to come back, trying to call out on these big companies to show them that they have been a neglectful family by leaving these series to die, are very much the same people who are pretty much also buying the same games as they say they are soulless, yet ignore the actual game that they actually asked for. And yet they always ask the same question: why can't these companies make the games like I used to love back in the day? And that's why, with my smiled intellect and with me coming to the conclusion that I think everybody online is dumb except for me, is gonna do what none of these players who play the same Soulless game will ever do. Actually play the other AAA platformers that aren't just from Nintendo or indie devs. I have 3 platformer games that Sony released during the PS5 era that are well brilliant in their own right and are a massive peeper down just memorabilia the game. I think we should start out with a little game that pretty much flew under the radar in everyone's eyes. A game that I think is underrated and deserves to be recognized by everyone and not just be the game that is labeled, haha, the game that performed worse than Concord. And it's Lego Horizon Adventures.